Silt skittered along the corrugated walls of the personnel carrier, rattling like dice in a gambler's cup. Inside, Amira Jalil pressed her datapad against the window slit, wiping a circle clear with her sleeve. Beyond the glass, flares painted the dawn a chemical pink, revealing a ragged procession of diggers, haulers, and bipedal exosuits lumbering over the dune ridges of the Coruscant expanse. Against that immensity, the convoy looked like a child's toys, but it was armed toys, and Amira had long ago learned never to underestimate playthings manufactured by Selene Dynamics. 15 minutes to pit 19, the driver announced, voice filtered through a respirator that made him sound amused by everything and interested in nothing. Any of you first-timers mind the dust devils. They're hotter than they look. Most of the researchers nodded automatically, though Amira doubted anyone in this van was truly new. Selene didn't bring rookies this deep, not when the merchandise was worth more per gram than Starship fuel. She fastened the collar of her cooling vest and checked the static clasp around the slender violet tube on her belt. A half-full phial of diluted giant tear. Even at 5% concentration, it could hammer a nervous system into seizure if inhaled. The miners joked it was liquid nostalgia, but that was like calling an earthquake a dance. Technically true, mortally misleading. Across from her sat Reg Sato, shift foreman, broad as an ore door, pores glittering with sweat. He tapped a finger against his chest reader and said, "Pulse spiking again, Doc?" "I'm not a doctor," Amira said, "and I'm fine." "Sure you are. I saw your last trip topside. You came back looking like someone yanked you through their divorce." Amira half smiled. Reg's way of showing concern was to coat it with crude. "Just running calibrations," she said. "New rig, new anomalies." Reg shrugged. "Long as you don't tweak out mid-shift. Had a neurotech go catatonic last quarter. All he did was sniff an uncured shard." Amira recalled the incident report. Hallucinations, convulsions, eventual organ shutdown. They cremated the body right here in the desert because the crystals had already started seeding inside his lungs, and the corporation didn't want the contamination traveling off-world. Official cause, industrial misadventure. Selene had 11 separate euphemisms for dying on the job, each one indemnification ready. The carrier lurched to a halt. External panels clanged, while the corporate sentries performed their standard sweep. Motion sensors, facial scans, biometric verifications. An armored trooper appeared in the doorway, visor matte black, rifle humming like a caged insect. "Clear," she announced. "Welcome back to 19. Extraction rotation Delta 2 begins in 14 minutes. If you're not on my manifest, kindly turn to smoke." Her joke earned the usual nervous laughter. She was Captain Kress, rumored ex-legionnaire, rumored ex-insurgent, rumored ex-everything. Amira followed the line off the carrier, boots sinking ankle-deep into scorching dust. The dig site lay in a sinkhole 200 meters across, thrumming with generators and dotted by glare lamps suspended on cables like tethered stars. At its center, a yawning trench revealed the faint glint of crystal veins embedded in fossilized tissue, the color of rusted iron. Giant dermis. Seeing it still stunned her, even after 6 tours. A geological record of grief, one continental sigh after another, all condensed into opaline strata, each shard humming with the psychic echo of a creature whose skull could roof a cathedral. The corporate briefing claimed the giants had perished millennia before humanity reached the desert, felled by a climate cataclysm of their own making. Amira, who had witnessed their memories firsthand, suspected a different story. A gust curled past the barriers, carrying the tang of ionized air. Over the roar of drills, she heard the cowled murmur of the desert, an exhalation too big for wind alone. The giants were dead, yet the desert still spoke in their register. Every time she set foot on this sand, she felt the buzzing tinder of a truth she could almost name. Reg waved her toward an elevator platform descending into the pit. "Don't wander," he warned. "Cress has new perimeter orders. Someone keeps flying drones at us from the eastern ridges." Amira nodded, feeling the prickle of tension that had infected the camp since last week's firefight. Unidentified combat drones had breached the exclusion zone, streaking overhead like steel hornets. Celine's guards shot down 3. 2 vanished behind dunes, leaving only twisted wreckage and rumors of a rival conglomerate, or maybe insurgent conservationists, the sort who believed the tiers should remain untouched, sacred relics of an ancient sentience. Nobody knew. Nobody dared ask too loudly. The platform shuddered downward. As the walls of the trench rose around her, she reviewed the day's objective: isolate and harvest a tier cluster, intersecting the osteo ridge of the sternum. That was the heart-adjacent region, high yield but volatile. A single misscored fragment could release a memory torrent strong enough to knock out an entire crew, and the desert heat accelerated diffusion. "Your mask," Reg reminded her, and she sealed the gasket over her mouth and nose. The respirator fogged for a moment, clearing to show the glow of the dig floor, tables arranged like surgical stations, miners and exo-rigs chipping with diamond-edged chisels, conveyor belts carrying shards to memory vaults. Overhead, cranial halons flickered, colors shifting according to particulate density, warning of any psychogenic surges. She crossed to her assigned bay, glancing at the translucent slabs stacked for processing. Most were no larger than a human palm, but occasionally the miners unearthed tier geodes the size of grain silos. Those required remote fracturing on the surface, lest the memories backloop into the entire camp. Amira's bay partner arrived, a lanky archivist named Dia Zian, hair cropped close, eyes always scanning. "Morning, Mira," she said through her mask, voice clipped but melodic. "You ready to dream someone else's end?" "Not fond of the phrasing," Amira replied. "But yes, let's get consent forms signed." Dia snorted. The old ethical gag. There were no forms, no consent. The giants were dead, and Celine's corporate charter classified memory extraction as non-sentient resource reclamation. But the jest kept them marginally sane. They lifted the dermal slab onto an isolation cradle. Hollow readouts projected chemical spectra, verifying tier composition. 99% silica and mineral salts, 1% structured neurolipids. That last fraction was the gold, the psychic solvent. The miners called it auric mire. Celine's marketing department christened it retinal soutiem. Military buyers paid absurd sums for it, using the captured impressions to rehearse battle simulations or quick upload foreign languages into soldiers. Entertainment giants used diluted forms for immersive cinema, pure emotion experiences. But there were side effects: identity bleed, time dilation, synaptic fragmentation. Celine buried those studies in footnotes. Dia aligned the microneedles. "Ready for the pull? Activate on 3, Amira answered. Steady hands. 1, 2, a tremor rippled through the pit, knocking tools from benches. Sirens whooped. The cranial halons strobed crimson. "Containment breach," Dia shouted. "No," Amira said, pointing upward. Sand sluiced down the trench walls, kicked loose by something hitting ground level. Gunfire crackled, muffled by the depth. A rising roar, VTOL engines, another tremor. An explosion's shockwave slammed through the shaft, rattling gantries. The foreman's voice boomed over intercom. "All personnel, lockdown protocol, corporate security engaging hostiles.
Hold positions until clearance. Amira traded a grim look with Daya. Hostiles. So the rumors were true. Someone was tired of letting Celine monopolize the tears. She slapped the cradle into stasis, sealing the half-extracted shard under a palladium lid. If stray ordnance struck and aerosolized the stuff, everyone down here would find themselves drowning in an ocean of borrowed despair. "Help me move this to the core vault," she said. Dia hesitated, eyes flicking toward an auxiliary tunnel that led deeper into the skeletal remains of the giant. "We could ride this out in the inner chambers," she suggested. "Less chance of crossfire. And more chance of getting sealed in if they collapse the pit," Amira countered. "Core vaults reinforced. Go." They hoisted the cradle onto a mag sled and hurried down a corridor lined with rib bones, thicker than subway columns. The sirens dimmed here, replaced by the not-quite silence of incomprehensibly vast bones singing beyond hearing. Footsteps echoed behind them. Amira spun, expecting Dia's stride, but another figure emerged, Captain Cress, carrying an assault rifle and wearing a sleek data rig on her forearm. "Jalil," she barked. "Need you." "Securing inventory," Amira said, indicating the sled. "That can wait. Command wants a live imprint now." "During an attack?" Cress's visor retracted, revealing blood on her cheek. "Exactly. Command thinks whoever's raiding wants PR, proof Celine can't protect its assets. But if we capture a high-grade memory first, something that can tilt a market or topple a government, the stock hits negligible. They sent the order 10 seconds ago." Amira glanced at Dia. Both women understood the calculus. Celine's profit, above crew safety. It had always been thus. "No," Amira said quietly. Cress's eyes narrowed. "You misheard. I won't risk a mass exposure event to polish Celine's quarterly." The captain lifted her rifle. "That's not a request. And if the hostiles breach our perimeter, what happens when they find unharvested tears? Do you want a merc outfit high on giant grief, hallucinating their lost childhoods while spraying bullets?" "That's already happening topside," Dia muttered. Amira steadied her breathing, mind racing. If she acquiesced, she might salvage lives by controlling the extraction. If she refused, Cress would find another neurotech, maybe less cautious. Either route risked disaster. Then another thought arrived, sharp, treacherous, inevitable. What if the giant's memories held leverage to break Celine's monopoly for good? She'd glimpsed fragments before. Images of citadel spires felled by storms of iron. Glimpses of small bipedal figures running through the colossi's shadow. Humans. The giants hadn't died from climate. They'd been exterminated, and the weapons in those fragments looked eerily like primitive versions of Celine's current line. If that truth became public. "How long for a quick imprint?" she asked. Cress's posture eased. 10 minutes with your skill set." "Fine, but we do it in the sternum chamber. Highest density means fewer passes. Lead the way." They left Dia to push the mag sled to the core vault, while Amira guided Cress down a narrow hallway, until the ceiling lowered and opened into the great atrium of the giant's chest cavity. Spotlights revealed pearlescent stalactites. Frozen tear columns fused with calcified cartilage. Amira photographed the scene to timestamp chain of custody. Though she doubted the data would stay internal for long, she selected a tear node near the wall, lanced by an earlier core sample. Fresh fissures glimmered like frost. She attached a paraneuronal tap, a spiderweb of iridium filaments, and connected it to a cranium jack headset. Normally, the process required a sedation pod and a controlled sensory field, but urgency shredded protocols. She bit a sterile strip
and signaled Cress to monitor vitals. "On ingress," she said, seating the headset, recording direct to drive. The shard's interior bloomed into her consciousness. Dark at first, a cradle of emptiness, then light. Cracked opal skies, dust storms gilded by an amber sun. A giant, wounded, staggered toward a horizon where pillars of smoke rose from burning orchards. Amira tasted metal and ozone. She felt colossal ribs grind with each breath. The giant's hands, each finger thicker than a starship hull, cupped glistening tears. Around its ankles, tiny war machines scuttled, firing needles of light. Pain roared through bones. A voice, deep as tectonic shift, spoke words her mind rendered as shapes. Grief, apology, warning. She pushed deeper. A memory of negotiation. Humans in ceramic armor facing the giants, offering truce in exchange for extraction rights to the tier's psychogenic properties. The giants refused. The humans unleashed viral nanites that petrified tissue from within. The giants unleashed tears enough to drown deserts, each crystallizing mid-air. Humanity harvested them later, built empires on stolen recollections. A pattern older than time. Conquest, loot, forget. The memory flooded like hemorrhage. Amira's respirator alarmed. Pulse spiked. She should abort, but she needed one more layer. A final image surfaced. Coordinates. Geospatial orientation, relative to 3 desert constellations. A map. There were more burial sites, more giants, enough to saturate whole markets, or bury them. But the memory carried also a key, an encryption seed threaded through cosmic background radiation, a message for any sentient who dared mine grief. "Ira! Amira!" Cress's voice drilled through. "You're over the time." She ripped off the headset, staggering. "Got it," she gasped, heart hammering. "We're done." Cress deactivated the tap, pocketing the drive. Her eyes glittered with reflected strobe light. "You saw something big. What makes you think your pupils look like black holes? What was it?" "Proof humans murdered them," Amira said, "and a map to more remains." Cress's lip twitched. "That will complicate PR. Unless it's buried." She reached for the drive. Cress stepped back, weapon rising. "Sorry, Jalil. Chain of custody says security holds the imprint." Amira's limbs trembled, not only from aftershock, but rage. If Celine controlled that evidence, they would spin it, destroy it, or worse, sell it as premium experience. The truth would become another product, priced beyond reach. Over the comm, Reg's voice crackled. "Hostiles repelled. Repeat, repelled. Sitrep demanded. All units." Cress toggled her transmitter. "Sternum chamber secure. Returning with asset." Amira's decision crystallized, sharp as any tear shard. She flicked her wrist, palming a glassy sliver she'd pocketed earlier. A raw memory fragment no larger than a thumbnail. She flung it at the floor between them, where it struck stone and vaporized. Iridescent mist billowed, suffusing the chamber with the smell of petrichor and smoke. Cress cursed, switching her respirator to closed circuit, but the effect was neuro-optical, bypassing filters. The giant's final lament erupted around them. Wind howling through broken spires, the ache of a species undone. Cress staggered, rifle dipping as existential vertigo swallowed her. Amira lunged, tearing the drive from the captain's gauntlet. She bolted past, sprinting through the corridor, the echo of colossal heartbeats rattling gravel. "Jalil!" Cress roared, recovering. Gunshots ricocheted, sparking off bone columns. Amira zigzagged, adrenaline lashing her muscles. Dia materialized from the intersecting tunnel on a loader bike. "Need a ride." "Now!" She leapt onto the cargo platform. Dia gunned the throttle, whipping them toward the service elevator. Overhead, muffled explosions continued, Celine's gunships strafing retreating hostiles. The desert sky outside pulsed with tracer fire, but the immediate path was clear. Security had redeployed topside, leaving the lower galleries thinly guarded. "Where to?" Dia yelled. "Off-grid," Amira answered, clutching the drive. "Need a secure uplink to broadcast this." Dia nodded. "I know a salvage rig 30 clicks east. Old UN relay dish." A crash behind. Cress on a commandeered rover, closing fast. Dia swerved around a rib, tires spitting dust. "Hold tight," she warned, and slammed a release lever. The walkway panels behind them sheared away, collapsing into the abyss. The rover skidded, toppled. Cress bailed, rolling through grit. She raised her rifle, but the gap was too wide now. Her amplified shout chased them. "You think exposure helps? Another corporation will fill the vacuum. Nothing changes." Amira almost agreed, but change required cracks, even small, even fleeting, in the armor of power. She looked at the drive, its indicator blinking like a heartbeat. "Maybe," she murmured, "but they'll have to fight harder for every lie." Dia angled the bike up the ramp toward daylight. The elevator shaft had jammed during the firefight, so they accelerated along a maintenance tunnel that ascended in switchbacks. Overhead, metal clanged as more personnel poured into defensive positions. Unaware, 2 techs were absconding with the crown jewel. They burst onto the surface beneath a blistering noon sun. The horizon wobbled with heat mirages. Dia punched coordinates into the nav. Salvage rig, 30 kilometers. ETA 12 minutes at full throttle. The armored perimeter behind them came alive. Turrets swiveling, drones lifting. A siren fixed on their signature. "Low," Amira urged. Dia throttled back a hair, ducking behind dune contours. Energy bolts streaked overhead, fusing sand into glass. "Should ditch trackers," Dia advised. Amira yanked open the loader's panel, ripped out the identification beacon, and hurled it. A turret locked onto the beacon mid-air, blasting it into vapor. The guns recalibrated, but precious seconds were lost. They raced, kicking plumes of dust. Amira's neural aftermath still rippled, echoes of dying giants, their towering sorrow now braided with her own resolve. The drive felt heavy, as though containing not data, but the density of truth. On a distant ridge, the salvage rig rose, a skeletal tower leaning like a drunk saint, dish cracked yet functional. Beneath it, tents of nomad scrappers fluttered. Dia slowed, raising a white cloth. The nomads waved them through, no love for corporate enforcers. Inside the biggest tent, an ancient transponder sat on crates. Dia slotted a slug battery. Amira connected the drive. Menus cascaded in amber text. She selected multi-node dump, public. The dish groaned, orienting skyward. "Piggybacking on old WeatherSat," Dia explained. "Give it 90 seconds. Some nomads entered, offering water, eyes curious. Amira gulped, fingers trembling over the abort key she refused to press. Outside, rotor thunder approached. Celine gunship. Dia looked at her. 40 seconds. Amira stepped to the tent flap. The gunship hovered, wash of sand shredding visibility. Over loudspeaker. "Surrender the stolen property. Amnesty possible." Amira yelled back. "You want property? Get a warrant." The gunship's side cannon powered, whining to lethal pitch. She counted heartbeat beats. 20 seconds. The nomads stood beside her, some brandishing antique rifles, symbolic gesture at best. Then the dish pinged. Upload complete. A smile flickered on Amira's lips. She raised her hands, drive now blank, memory liberated into the sky. The gunship hesitated, receiving frantic orders from corporate uplink.
as Celine's legal teams realized suppression was impossible. Dia whispered, "We did it." "First step," Amira said. She could almost hear the giants now, not weeping but whispering. Gratitude, release. Somewhere across dataspheres, people were watching a giant's last sunrise, feeling the quake of its heart, witnessing the betrayal that felled them. Maybe some would dismiss it as propaganda, but enough would see. The gunship withdrew, uncertain whether killing them served any purpose, now that the secret was wildfire. Sand settled. The desert resumed its eternal hush, like a colossal creature finally exhaling. Amira looked east, where a mirage shimmered, a procession of glass towers or maybe bones. She imagined someday the tears would finish dissolving, memories returning to dust, and the giants would sleep unbothered beneath honest dunes. Until then, she would guard their story with the fury of a borrowed grief and the fragile courage of a miner who had dared to dream beyond her mandate. She turned to Dia. "Let's move. We'll need allies." "Where?" "Anywhere corporate didn't pave over," Amira said, shouldering a pack. "Plenty of desert left." They set off, small figures against endless sand, while above, satellites mirrored messages across hemispheres, carrying the shimmering ghosts of a lost people into every receptive mind. In that cracked sky, the past was no longer captive, and the future, not yet written, shivered with possibility.